try to describe the transformations of this trigonometric function. Ladies and gentlemen, to be able to understand what kind of transformation there are, you need to remember general form. What is the general form? Y is equal to A times cosine B times X minus H plus K. So I just want to draw your attention to one point over here. What is the coefficient of the X here? Positive 1, right? What is the coefficient? Positive 3. This is the reason I need to make the coefficient of the X 1. To be able to do that, you need to get greatest common factor inside the parentheses. After that, Y is going to be cosine. If you get greatest common factor, which is 3, you will get X plus pi over 4 plus 0. Now we can understand what A, what B, what H and K are. A is positive 1. B is positive 3. H is pi over 4. And K is 0. Which means that you can understand amplitude is positive 1. And what is the period of the original function cosine x? It was 2 pi, right? The period. Now, what is going to be period of this transformed function? Is going to become 2 pi over 3. Now, because of the h is pi over 4, your phase shift or horizontal shift pi over 4 to the left. Pi over 4 units to the left. And because of k is equal to 0, there is no vertical shift. So this is amplitude, period, 2 pi over 3, phase shift, which means that horizontal shift pi over 4 units to the left, and there is no vertical shift. Next question. How can knowledge of the transformation help you to sketch the graph of y is equal to 2 sine x over 2 plus 3? What is the original function of this transformed trigonometric function, which is y is equal to sine x? What is the amplitude of original function? Amplitude positive 1. What is the period, which is equal to what? 2 pi. And you can also understand what is the maximum point. Maximum point of this function is positive 1. Minimum point of this function is going to be negative 1. We will compare this with transformed function. And remember that what is the general form of the transformed form? Y is equal to A times sine B times X minus H plus K. When you compare this, you can get A is going to become 2, B is going to become 1 over 2, and there's no H. K is going to be, there's no H is equal to 0. K is going to become positive 3. Now, let's find the amplitude, period, maximum and minimum point of this transformed function. Because A is 2, your amplitude of transformed function is going to become positive 2. Because B is 1/2, your period is going to become 2 pi over 1/2 will be equal to 4 pi. There's h is equal to 0, that's why there's no phase shift or horizontal shift. K is equal to positive 3 means your vertical shift 3 units up. All right, if this function, if in this function there wasn't any vertical shift, then you will tell me the maximum point is positive 2 and the minimum point is negative 2. But now what's happening? All your function, let me graph this for you. In this function, you will get like this. All right. Now, if this was that, if there wasn't any vertical shift, then this is going to be positive 2. This is the maximum. This is going to be negative 2. But now, what's happening? This function is shifting vertically 3 units up. Then this is going to become positive 5. So this is going to become positive 1. So what is going to be your maximum point? Your maximum point is going to be positive 5. What is your minimum point? Your minimum point is going to be positive 1. And this is how we can knowledge of the transformation of this graph. Next question. What are the key features of the graph of the function? Remember that. First, find the parent function. What is the parent function? Y is equal to cosine x. And also, please try to get the general form of the transformed function. Y is equal to a times cosine b times x minus h plus k. First, I will find what is the amplitude of original function, which is positive 1. What is the period of this original function, which is 2 pi. And what is the maximum and minimum point. Maximum is positive 1, minimum is negative 1. Now, please find a. When you compare these two functions, what is a? Positive 4. What is b? Positive 3. And there's no h, which is equal to 0, and k is equal to positive 1. According to those information, your amplitude of the transformed function is going to become positive 4. And your b is going to change your period. So the period is going to become 2 pi over 3. Because of there's no horizontal shift, we are not going to move right or left, but k is equal to 1, which means that your function is going to move up 1 unit vertically. So maximum point is going to become positive 5, and your minimum point is going to become negative 3. I would like to graph these two original and the transform function on the Desmos, and you can understand and you can see the graph well. All right. Your original function cosine x is y is equal to cosine x, and this is your function. And my function is 4 cosine 3x plus 1. 4 y is equal to 4 cosine 3x. This is going to be in parentheses plus 1. So what's going to happen? Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the first original function, what is going to be your maximum point is positive 1. What is going to be your minimum point is negative 1. As you see here, maximum is positive 1, minimum is negative 1. So, and then amplitude. Remember that to be able to find the amplitude, add maximum and minimum, divide by 2, which is going to give you midline. The midline is the x-axis, and the distance between the midline and maximum or minimum is going to give you amplitude, which is 1. And also period, remember that what was the period? All the domain until y coordinates are going to start repeating itself. So it's going to start from here, and after that point it's going to start y coordinate repeating itself. So that's why 0, 2 pi, which means that 2 pi is your period. Now, my transformed function. When you look at my transformed function, ladies and gentlemen, what is going to be your maximum point is 5. What is your minimum point is -3. If you add them up and divide by 2, you will understand what midline is, which is y is equal to +1. And then, what is the amplitude? Because if the y is equal to 1, if the y is equal to 1 is your midline, remember the distance between the midline and the maximum point is going to give you amplitude, which is 4. And the period is, you can understand, it's going to start from here, and then after that point your y value start repeating itself. So what is your period? Is 2 pi over 3. 2 pi over 3 is your period. So we found the key features of the graph of this function correct. Now next one. What are the key features of the graph of this function? So to be able to graph this, first you need to determine original function, which is y is equal to sine x. And then you should also get the general form of transformed function. Y is equal to a times sine b times x minus h plus k. Alright, what is the amplitude of the original function? Which is +1. What is the period? Is 2 pi. What is the maximum point? Which is +1. The minimum point is -1. When you compare this, let's find the A. A is 3. This negative is going to reflection across the x-axis. A is equal to 3. B is equal to 1. H is equal to pi over 2. And k is equal to -2. According to this, the amplitude is going to become +3. The period is not going to change because b is equal to 1. So 2 pi is going to be your period. Pi over 2, h is equal to pi over 2, which is horizontally shift pi over 2 units left. And -2, k is equal to -2 means vertically 2 units down. Because of all the graph is going to move 2 units down, your maximum and minimum points are going to change. So your maximum is going to become +1 and your minimum is going to become -5. Alright, these are the next question. Identify the amplitude, period, phase shift, or horizontal shift. Same thing. Vertical shift and the maximum and minimum values of this function. Let's find that. Remember that to be able to find, you need to get your original function. the original function of this is y equal to sine x. And what was your general form of the transformed function? Y is equal to a times sine or cosine, it doesn't matter, b times x minus h plus k. Yeah, let me find the amplitude, period, maximum, minimum points of original function. The amplitude is positive 1. Your period is 2 pi. Your maximum is positive 1. Your minimum is negative 1. If you compare the transformed function with the formula, a is going to become 1/2. B is going to become 1. H is going to become negative pi over 3. And K is going to become negative 4. According to those information, we can find the amplitude. Amplitude is 1/2. Period is not going to change because your B is 1, so 2 pi is going to be your period. Negative pi over 3 h, which means that your horizontal shift, horizontal or phase shift, horizontal shift, pi over 3 units to the right. To the right. And vertical shift 4 units down. All right, and your maximum is going to become 1/2 minus 4 is going to be negative 7 over 2 or negative 3.5. And your minimum is going to become negative 4 over 5. Negative 4 over 4.5 or negative 9 over 2. And these are your answer of first part. Next part, same idea. We are going to first find parent function. Parent function of this transformed function is cosine y is cosine x. And what is the amplitude of the original function? Amplitude, period, maximum, and minimum. Amplitude is positive 1, period is 2 pi, maximum is positive 1, minimum is negative 1. What is the general form of transformed function? Y is equal to a times cosine b times x minus h plus k. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the inside the parentheses, unfortunately the coefficient of the x is not 1. This is the reason I need to rewrite this expression as a y is equal to 2 times cosine. If you get the greatest common factor inside the parentheses, you will get 2x plus pi over 8 plus k, which is 2. Now I can find what a is, what b is, what h is, and k is. What is the a? 2. What is the b? 2 as well. What is your h, which is pi over 8, and your k is positive 2. According to those information, I can understand what is your amplitude of transformed function. Amplitude of the transformed function is positive 2. Your period is going to become 2 pi over 2, which is pi. Because of your h is pi over 8, horizontal or phase shift, horizontal shift, this is positive, so that's why pi over 8 units to the left. and your vertical shift 2 units up, your maximum is going to be positive 4, your minimum is going to be 0. And these are your answer.